so hot in here. Let me tell you, I don't have an AC because where I'm going to school, it gets really cold during the winter, and I thought coming from Florida, I would be okay and could manage this heat, but it is really hot in here. And like my hair's frizzing inside of my own apartment. Anyway, hey everyone, my name is Kristen. I'm currently in my second semester of nursing school, and today is my very first experience at the hospital for clinicals. I've been waiting so long for this because I've been working on virtual patients. I'm obviously excited, but I am nervous to finally work with my very first patient in front of me. But I am ready to take you along, and if you are interested to see how my day goes, just go ahead and keep watching. Good morning, everyone. Just saying, this is such a cute angle for me. I should film like this more often. So today is my very first on-site clinical day for mental health. They finally started letting students back in the hospital. So I recently just drove, so 2 days ago, 17 hours from home, so I could go back to school and do my clinicals on site. I'm very excited, but I'm also super tired. I've been snoozing my alarm for the past 30 minutes. It's right now, believe it or not, with how light it is, it's actually 5:30 in the morning. I don't know why it's so bright outside today this early, but the sun hasn't been setting here either until like 9, which is surprising. It's been a very bright summer, so it has been easier for me to wake up because of the light, and I thought it was going to be more difficult, but I just have been kind of lazy and haven't been wanting to get out of bed. But I'm going to get up and brush my hair, put it up in a bun, brush my teeth, change, and then I'm going to make a smoothie and then pack my lunch. I usually always make a smoothie in the morning because I'm usually never too hungry. So I usually do something light like a granola parfait or a fruit parfait, or I'll do a smoothie with some greens and then like chia seeds or flax seeds, just something to put in my stomach in the morning. But usually I'll have a bigger meal during lunch and dinner. But I am packing extra snacks with me for the morning just in case I do get hungry, because I know I will be running around tending to the patients. So I'm gonna go ahead and start getting ready and then take you along with me throughout the day. I'm just making a smoothie with my smoothie maker. I'm putting in flax seeds, mixed berries that are frozen, spinach, and some milk. And I also do like to put a hint of vanilla in my smoothies as well. For lunch, I'm just packing my Go-Go Squeeze applesauce, a lemon Lara bar, some carrots to snack on, and then my favorite, a caprese sandwich with tomato, mozzarella, and arugula. And now I am off to my clinical. So I'm currently on my way to my mental health clinical, and I don't really know what to expect. I'm obviously excited, but I'm nervous. I know I'm going to be doing some interviews today with a patient, so this is the first time I've ever worked in nursing school with a patient, so I'm really excited for that, to finally get some hands-on experience with all that's been going on. I haven't been able to go to clinical yet. I've only been going to clinical online, and the virtual environment's definitely interesting, to say the least. But yeah, I definitely plan to keep you updated if I can throughout the day, to kind of give you an idea of what to expect during clinical. Can we just talk about that it's 6 in the morning, or almost 6, it's 5:55, and it looks like it's like 7 or 8 o'clock outside right now. The summertime where I am right now is so beautiful. Everything is just so green and vibrant. I finished my first day of clinical. I'm currently on my way home right now, and I could not record at all in the hospital. My clinical instructor made it a point to not take out our cell phones. So I'm on my way home. I'm gonna get home and then kind of vlog about how the day went. So it was definitely a good day, and I honestly couldn't have asked for a better first day. There obviously were some glitches in the morning, but considering the fact that I have not gone through many of my skills and have had little experience in even just the lab site itself, I definitely think my first day was better than I could have asked for. So I also do want to go home, take a shower, just get cleaned up, and then probably make some food because I'm really hungry. So I do want to go home and cook and eat something. I cannot wait to discuss kind of how my day went, things that I could do better next time, things that I think went pretty well. So for lunch, I'm just making a salad with some spring green mix and spinach, arugula, some cherry tomatoes, as well as red and green peppers. And I'm currently cutting up some carrots to place on top. And I did sprinkle on some croutons, some white cheddar, and I'm making my own salad dressing with olive oil, balsamic vinegar, some Italian seasoning and oregano, salt, pepper, and garlic. And I'm just sprinkling that on top and then just cutting up an avocado to place on the side of my salad. All right, now that I'm finally settled, I can finally talk about how my day went. So when I got to the hospital, I did have to enter through the emergency department. They required us to go through a screening process to make sure we had not come into contact with somebody who had COVID, as well as they took our temperature. The hospitals will administer a new mask once a week, and since I'm only at my mental health clinical site for once a week, I will be getting a new mask. Now, I'm not 100% sure if the individual who was checking me in knew that she was supposed to give me a mask, but there were many of us with just cloth masks, and we know that we were supposed to get a surgical one, and she kind of looked at me weird when I went back up and was like, hey, the nursing students were also supposed to get a mask. So with all said and done, I did get a surgical mask, but it was just a little bit of a process. Now, when my clinical instructor got there, she kind of gave us just a very small tour of just like the units that we were going to be on, and we ended up going into a conference room to talk about pre-conference. Now, this is where we would talk about our assigned patients, but since it was the first day, we kind of just talked about what the agenda would look like for that day. And we did get our unit assignments. So for the first hour or so, I did end up on a unit with live patients. Now, I was placed on a mental health overflow unit for the first hour. So normally this unit is closed, but they did have a decent amount of patients, so they did have to open it up. And the first thing that I had to do was start taking vitals. Now, you have to remember, I only had 2 months of nursing school in person, so my vitals competency was the last in-person lab exam that I had. And I had no idea how to use the machines that they have in the hospital, so as me and one of my other students in the cohort were calling out patients, I was like, I don't know how to use this. And my clinical instructor kind of looked at us and was like, what, does nobody know how to take vitals? And it's not that we don't know how to take vitals, it's just that we haven't really had the practice. I've only really practiced on my family at home. So sometimes I feel like I lack in my skills, but I know that I wasn't given the proper in-person training for that, and that has nothing to do with my school. It just has to do with COVID and us going online. So once I got comfortable using the machine, I was able to take the blood pressure, the heart rate, and then obviously the oxygen saturation much more easily. It took me a little bit, but once I got it, it definitely became easier. And that's pretty much all I did for vitals except for respiration. Silly me, forgot a watch. So when I was taking vitals, I was like, oh my God, I can't believe I forgot my watch. But my clinical instructor told us not to bring anything. So I didn't think to bring a watch because that's in my actual stethoscope case. But there was a clock on the wall that I could look at, so I was pretty thankful that I had that to save me. The thermometer that was a part of the machine was not working, so I did not get to take any temperatures at this time. But the nurses on the unit were like, oh, it's okay. We will go ahead and go back and take their temperature when we actually get a working thermometer. So I left before I got to see any of the nurses go back and take temperatures, but I did get to distribute food trays. Now that was definitely an interesting experience because I did have to go grab the food cart, and I don't know if you've seen the ones that they have at the hospital, but it was this big rectangular, like silver thing in front of me. It was huge, like it was taller than me. So I was like trying to take it down the hallway, and one of the nurses was like, you really need to be careful, this is heavy, people have like ran over their foot with it. And I was like, clumsy me, that'd be something that I would do. Thankfully, I successfully managed to bring the food cart over without hurting myself. But when I was starting to distribute the food, the trays were actually really hard to get out. They kind of have it where the trays don't really move whenever the cart's being transferred. So when I went to go take things out, it was almost like the force of me trying to get it out made the tray come right up, and I was like, okay, we're not spilling any food today. Everyone got their food. When you're in the mental health unit, you kind of have to gauge how much food the patient ate, as well as making sure you get all the utensils back. Sometimes in a mental health unit, the patients can be very creative on what they can do with utensils. So you always just want to make sure that you are one step ahead of the patient and make sure you're kind of gauging and knowing your surroundings very well. After the experience that I had in the unit, I didn't really get to talk to any specific patients before my clinical instructor came to get me. If I could have, I would have done an interview. My clinical instructor gave us a template of questions that we would ask a patient, and I definitely would have, but there was just so limited time with me being in that unit. I was then transferred to the outpatient side. So I didn't get to really perform any interviews because in the outpatient setting, you're only observing. So I didn't really get to have a lot of patient interaction except for on breaks. I tried to get to know some of the patients that were there, just get to know who they were. I didn't really pry too much to ask them why they were there, but a lot of them were very open and talked about it anyway. So I did get to hear some individual stories. And honestly, it's really inspiring to hear how these individuals cope with their everyday lives, especially having some sort of mental health disorder. I know that can't be easy. So I really did appreciate the patients that were open with me. But essentially what I did is I just observed some outpatient group therapy. And I just kind of scattered myself within the patients when I went to go sit down. And I did get to kind of go over in the first hour just like a reflection of how everybody's weekend went. And I thought that was so great to just hear like what everybody did on their weekend. Especially with COVID right now, my city's finally just starting to open, even just the indoor side of restaurants. So it's just pretty great to hear everybody trying to get back to their normal life right now. So in that first hour, I really didn't get to participate much. Many of the individuals who did speak did take up a pretty good chunk of time. So not everybody got to speak in that group therapy session. Now going into the second group therapy session, I feel like that session was just eye-opening for myself. We talked about resiliency, and the licensed counselor came around and gave us all a sheet of paper, and it just wanted us to reflect on how resilient we are. It gave us a few questions. I think it was probably about 7 questions, and you wanted to go ahead and either agree or disagree. And I found out that I have come a long way and I do have great resilience. I used to have a very low score of resilience, and honestly it's just taken me years to really practice and really understand how to improve my resilience. So it was just really inspiring to just see how far I've come within my own journey of my mental health, and just seeing me really improve kind of made me feel really happy when I was in that session. And I didn't really talk much just because the sessions are only 1 hour and it's very difficult to get everybody in who's actually a patient there. So I didn't want to take up anybody's time in case they really did need to talk. But I just loved hearing the stories of the individuals, and even if they're still working on an aspect of resiliency, they're able to quickly figure out, okay, this is what I can do to increase my resilience. So I honestly just loved hearing their stories. So sorry y'all, I did have to switch positions because the lighting was getting a little bit weird, which my apartment kind of has windows in like funky areas. So I am trying to play with the lighting right now. So hopefully I find a place that I like soon so I can just film in that one area. But as I was saying, I did get to go to one final group therapy session, And this one was by far my most favorite that I actually got to attend. Now, I did get to kind of learn some new coping skills. For the first half hour, we did go around the room and talk about coping skills that started with a specific letter. So we did start with A and we worked all our way to Z at the end of the alphabet. Now, let me tell you how difficult it is to think of a coping skill on the spot that starts with a specific letter like F or Q or X or Z. You know, like those ones were pretty difficult to figure out. So we were able to be creative and think of some good coping mechanisms, but it did take quite a minute until we got there. Now, the second half of that group therapy session, we did kind of focus on just coping skill like models, just to kind of better understand ourselves and kind of see maybe what model we can utilize in the future, or maybe if we already do utilize some of these models that we discussed. One of my favorite models that we talked about was about a beach ball. So essentially what this means is if you have a beach ball and you put it underneath water, essentially that beach ball is gonna pop right back up to the surface. And it's going to be a constant cycle that just keeps happening because the beach ball is full of air and it's just gonna float to the surface. Now, this may relate to somebody who copes in a certain way. So if you do not allow yourself the opportunity to really sit in and feel your emotions, to kind of understand maybe where those emotions stem from, all of your emotions are gonna kind of sink, and at one moment you can burst, kind of like how that beach ball comes up to the surface. So at any point in time, you can become angry, upset, uncontrollably cry, or just be sad. So you really want to make sure that you're honoring those feelings. And I thought it was so interesting because when you have this cycle of the beach ball, eventually your body's going to get accustomed to kind of sinking down in your emotions and then coming back up and really understanding how your emotions are. So then you feel better. So even though at first it almost seems like a negative model for coping skills, when you really start getting the hang of it, it actually ends up becoming kind of just like everyday life. Like when you go throughout life, you have days where you're gonna have more sad days, but you know, you have better days in the week that kind of even it out as well. Another model that I really liked was talking about a train and how whenever you experience a thought, like a negative thought, you kind of just let it pass by like a train. You don't act on it. You don't sit with that thought for a while. You just let it come in. You accept that the train is there. So you accept that your emotion is there, and then you just let it go. And you let it go like the train. So I really did enjoy really getting to know like the outpatient side of how things work in the hospital. Really in this outpatient setting, there was probably about 30 individuals who came in, and there were a few counselors who really took charge in these groups. And I thought it was so organized and such a great way to really help individuals who may be struggling with different mental health disorders and even like substance abuse. And technically they aren't admitted since it is outpatient, but many of these individuals do go to this program anywhere from like 6 to 8 weeks. So it is short term, but they really do leave you with having some great, not only coping skills, but hopefully you leave in better spirits as well. After the last group therapy session, my professor came to retrieve me and the other individual who was with me. And we ended up having a lunch break, so I was able to go down to the cafeteria and take my mask off. Thankfully, my lips were getting so dry, and I even brought my chapstick with me, but I can definitely tell that they're starting to hurt, so they are a little bit chapped. And I did eat my lunch and just take a breather. I think I had about an hour, which the other individuals who were still on units didn't really get much of a lunch break just because they did have patients that they were following. And right after lunch, we did go back to the conference room and we had post-conference. So we all just discussed how our day went, what we learned, and individuals who had specific patients to follow kind of went through their medical history, their psychiatric disorder. Then they talked about if they were on any medications. And the way my professor likes us to set this up is if we have medications, we need to go through the importance of the medication that the individual is on. Now, because this is mental health, we will only go over mental health medications that they are prescribed daily, not the ones as needed for like things like anxiety and things like that. So we kind of just talk about what class the drug is in, the mechanism of action, if there's any major and minor side effects. and if there's any black box warnings. So that's mainly kind of what we go over, and then we continue on and talk about if we interviewed the patient's responses, if we did a mental health exam, what those responses were as well. So a lot of the times we want to take a look at how the patient is dressed. Are they taking care of themselves? How are they sitting? A lot of the times you can tell if a patient is in distress just by like their posture and things like that. So we really do like to do assessments based on visual, just kind of eyeing the situation and seeing maybe what things we can pull out of just looking at the patient. Then we will go into things like goals that the patient might have. And we also, if applicable, talk about a sobriety plan, just to make sure that the patient has something to hold them accountable to follow their treatment plan. Then we kind of talk about what things we encourage them to do in their future, and we kind of just reflect at the very end of our day. So it is a lot to talk about in post-conference. We didn't get through everybody and their patient just because post-conference was only about an hour and a half to 2 hours. And a lot of the times when patients have a lot of things going on, it takes a long time to get through it all. So that was the end of my first clinical experience. I could not have asked for a better clinical experience at the hospital today. So I think I'm just going to listen to the lecture from my mental health class, because I do have a quiz that I need to submit this week. And if I have time and if I feel up to it, I may start some drug cards for my pharmacology class. I do have a long 3-day weekend, so we'll see how far I get in mental health to see if I want to go ahead and start the drug cards. So I have my PowerPoint pulled up for my mental health class. We are focusing right now on legal issues. I have about 3 of these PowerPoints to get through today, so I will probably just be doing this all evening. I don't want to fall behind, so I do want to try to get it done as soon as I can. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. I got through 2 lectures. I was listening to my professor on 1.5 speed, and she mainly just reads off the slides, so I didn't really have too many notes that I needed to take. I'm gonna do 1 more and then call it quits for the day, and then start getting ready for bed and just watch some TV. I haven't watched TV in some time, so I think that's how I'm gonna spend my evening. All right, y'all, if you've made it this far, thank you so much for watching this very long video. I'm about to go to bed. I'm gonna go brush my teeth and then start lying down. So I just wanna say, if you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe, and please leave your comments or any suggestions that you have down below. I love to hear what individuals would wanna see on my channel next. And of course, I do have to say good luck to you on your nursing journey.